I'm getting money, you see me. Stack it up to the ceiling. If you're looking for me, you know just where to find me. I'm on a pod with TC, with TC. Oh, I'm on a pod with TC, with TC.
All right, welcome. This is Financial Literacy with TC. I am your boy TC. As always, I want to thank you guys for joining me. So many podcasts out in the world you guys could have chose to listen to, but you always come back to choose to listen to mine, and I'm always appreciative of that. Today, as you can see, we're on location at, well, this isn't the name. It's called PAIR Charcuterie, but it's we thought this would be an amazing spot to be able to shoot this episode, perfectly paired. And I would be remiss if I didn't remind you that perfectly paired, we have sweet potato pie, and then we have a
pistachio latte,
and I'm telling you, it's fire. So before we get into the episode, I do always want to remind you guys to like, subscribe, and share. The goal is to have Black representation when we talk about all things finances, and as you all know, the goal is to have continued guests come on so they can share their experiences and their thoughts and just talk about some of the successes and things that they have going on in our community. And my guest today, she represents that so tremendously well. She is the owner of this beautiful establishment called PAIR Charcuterie. Am I saying charcuterie? I just want to make sure. Because it's not a word you said, some people be botching it. It took me a minute to get that right. But she's the owner of this beautiful spot called Charcuterie, PAIR Charcuterie. And she's also, she's a wife, she's a mother. She's also has some properties that she does. But on top of that, she's also in security and risk and compliance for her 9-to-5, which we definitely want to hit on today. Today's topic will be centered around just talking about infrastructures when it comes to banking and just some of the things that we're seeing out on social media when it comes to financial institutions, talking about mitigating risk and just some of the scams and things that we know that are going on in our communities as far as people being taken advantage of with scams and all types of sort of craziness. So we wanted to have a conversation centered around that. But with all that being said, I want to introduce you guys to Shaquala Swinton.
Yeah.
Dang. Shaquala, me and her relationship has been flourishing over several months. I'm a huge supporter of her business. I'm a huge supporter of her. We recently connected, understanding that we both have a background in banking, and we wanted to come together and not only, just talk about the success of her business, but also talk about what we're trying to do when it comes to just educating our community about the banking industry. So with that being said, hopefully I gave you a great introduction, but I always like to tell people, can't nobody introduce you how you introduce you.
Okay.
And this is your baby. So please take time to just let people know more about you that I didn't execute.
and great being here today, Tyler. You were actually the notary to sign our lease agreement.
Yes, I was.
To move in here. So that's how we met. So it's great to kind of, be at this full circle moment talking about PAIR. But yeah, PAIR, we are located downtown Pittsburgh on the corner of Smithfield and Boulevard, the Allies and the Pitt Building, right below Greenwood, Smithfield. And we specialize in creating customized and unique culinary experiences. So we operate as a full service coffee shop and charcuterie shop. You can come in and get grab and go charcuterie options, but you can kind of come in here and get a mix of a few different things. So we partner with some other small businesses, Early Maze Bakery, who provides the sweet potato pie that you have here. Commonplace Coffee is our coffee supplier.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Just to let y'all know, I will be eating this while here. So for those who in the audience, just if you're offended or it's bothersome, I apologize, but I'm sorry. That's what it's going to be.
It was calling my name when I came down here today. I can't wait to hear. We got sweet potato pie, apple pie, a lot of different pastries. If you come in, like I said, it's full service coffee shop. We partner with Commonplace Coffee for our coffee and espresso beans. So,
nice. Yep. So while we are talking about PAIR, because we definitely want to make sure we're highlighting and elevating Black representation, just how did PAIR come to fruition for you, or PAIR Charcuterie come through fruition for you, just based on, was it, because I know your background's mainly in banking, but kind of where did you get the idea to want to, I'm going to do this in a coffee shop, and then why in this location? Just give us a little bit of background on how all this came to be, because if you have not been to this space, it's phenomenal. Please do come check it out. And you're always looking to collaborate with different people, different businesses, and I ain't gonna hold you. Anytime somebody want to do lunch with me downtown, this is the spot we come to.
So yeah, PAIR started. I was actually as you said, my background's financial services, and I was actually working on a project for work in Portugal for about 4 months.
Wow.
So during that time, I traveled throughout Europe. Kind of hit like a few different countries, which kind of sparked my interest in charcuterie. If you're in Europe, I was there for a few months.
Okay.
You start to get used to eating cheese and cured meats and things like that, croissants.
Because that's a way of life.
Right, it's a way of life, and so especially being in Portugal, it's really a community centered country. Typically, if you walk through the streets of Portugal, you see people kind of sitting down and dining and eating at their cafes, and it's just really you see just a lot of groups of people just coming together. And so for PAIR, that kind of just sparked my passion. When I came back to the States, it was at the height of COVID. Everyone was kind of separated.
Right.
And so I was on a mission to bring people together through food. That's our mission. And so it sparked PAIR. Started introducing my family to kind of charcuterie and cheeses, and then it sparked creativity in me. I like building charcuterie boards and creating custom experience. So that's what started with PAIR. And then how we ended up in this space, I actually was introduced to Greenwood Smithfield through the Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership. Okay. They have a project pop-up. We're a project
Shout out to Samantha Black and Camille Bailey.
So we're a project pop-up recipient, and so they introduced us to Camille and Greenwood, and we really believe in their mission and what they're trying to really bring to the Pittsburgh area.
Absolutely.
So it just seemed like a perfect space for our first concept, which is PAIR Charcuterie, where we focus on coffee, cheese, and charcuterie here. So
absolutely. And I'm not gonna hold you. While we are on the subject of the Greenwood plan, we did have the Greenwood conference where you had your charcuterie board for Greenwood Week. If you missed that conference, you missed out, but it'll come back again next year. So make sure you guys show up and show out. But I got to see the spread, and I've seen many of your charcuterie spreads, and they are always phenomenal. They're a sight to be seen. Not only are they delicious, but just how you go about putting them together is always astonishing to me. So if you have not checked that out, definitely. And if you need corporate catering, weddings, y'all do it all. So
and shout out to Serenity Bloom. So she is a partner as well. So she did the tablescaping, which obviously elevates the grazing experience.
Absolutely.
So shout out to Brandy and Serenity Bloom as well, who contributed to that table.
Collaboration, y'all. So with that being said, we recently were together on Thursday. Shout out to Bridge City Connection and Realty Thinking. We were there for a loan pitch competition, which you were a participant in, and shout out to Neighborhood Community Fund, Miss Denise Sheely, Danny Glore. We definitely want to make sure we shout them out. But for those who aren't aware, we were in that room, and you had the pleasure of presenting PAIR Charcuterie to them in hopes of getting some funding and things of that nature. You did a pitch, which was phenomenal because you actually won. You won $100, and that was phenomenal. And before I just let you talk about that experience, I did want to say, you were captivating from the standpoint. You made sure you had all your research, you had everything that elevated your business. You were able to articulate it in a way that gravitated with the room. So I was just proud to watch you work.
Thank you.
Obviously, at the time, I didn't know if you were going to win or not, but you definitely did a phenomenal job, and it resonated with me because now it's like, okay, when I go to pitch my business and things that I'm doing, these are some bullet points that I should make sure I hit. And obviously, now that you won that. So just talk about what that feeling was like and how you felt and, just your overall thoughts about that.
Definitely shout out to Bridge City Connections and Realty Thinking. I wasn't really sure what, I think I was, kind of just forcing myself out my comfort zone a little bit and, trying something new.
Right.
I think it was a great opportunity to get in a room with like other entrepreneurs and meet like, just people in the city. I met, some really good people, some really cool people.
Right.
I made some really good connections. I think like, just now that I'm learning about like actually having a brick and mortar, a lot of it is like networking and like meeting people, just introducing them to your business. So I was so happy to be able to like just talk about PAIR and our mission and where we're trying to go in front of a room full of people, get them, just understanding what we do here, right?
Absolutely.
But yeah, it was a great, great exercise of just trying to understand like what as an entrepreneur, I think you're always trying to figure out like what's next and how do you scale your business, how do you kind of keep things fresh and moving forward. So I think that was a good way for me to like test the concept right in front of a room full of people. I think we got a good positive reaction, right? So
for sure.
But yeah, I mean, as a part of the loan pitch competition, I think we're really looking to accomplish this with PAIR. Generally, it's just growth, right? We want to grow, we want to expand our business. And our operations throughout the city, but we want to make smarter decisions, right? And like try to, essentially like streamline things, operationally as it relates to PAIR. So yeah, it was great to participate in that project, in that process, and pitch, PAIR and like where we're trying to go and like what we're trying to do and how we plan to grow. So
because I'm not gonna lie, that same evening you inspired me, and then I obviously I wasn't a part of the direct competition, but I was able to get up and just talk about financial literacy with TC, the podcast, and I'd done something I'd never done before, which was be very intentional about, asking people to just subscribe and check out and have a visual aid, and. Shout out to Ms. Denise. She literally told me this was the best pitch I've ever done. And that meant the world to me because as someone who's an avid networker, I'm very intentional about exactly what you said. The only way people are going to know about you and really expand, obviously you'll do your social media, but being in those rooms, I have a lot more impact. And that night I gained about 15 new subscribers.
Okay, so, that's what's up. Yeah, and I would say for sure, like, and I have to shout you out for your pitch as well. I mean, you came in super confident. I think that's the key, right?
Thank you.
Like, you came in super confident, and like you were really clear about what you were trying to accomplish, like what your mission was. I think that's crucial.
Yeah.
As a business owner, to like really be clear on like why you started it, right? And I think that's what you did in the room. Like, you came in, you were confident, you told everybody exactly why, the purpose of this podcast and like what you're trying to accomplish, and then. I think also like where you did great is like you talked about your impact, and I think that's probably where people are most interested to.
For sure, because that's what people gravitate to is like that good warm feel of they want to have something more to support than just you want my money,
right? For sure.
So while we had the pleasure of doing that, one of the things that I understood was you also use, this business as other parts of your life where you're in investing. Just curious, because I always want to educate our audience that, you can still have the 9 to 5, you can still have the family, you can still have the business, and you can use those different incomes and things of that nature to do other things to create passive income for you. And no one embodies that better than you. So I just wanted to get your thoughts and just a little bit for you to share, anything that's on you to share about that, because so many people have aspirations to do that, but they may not necessarily know the ins and outs or, how they go about it. And obviously I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like you have been navigating that in a way that, some people could learn from. So
I mean, it's definitely a balance. Because like you said, I'm working a full-time job. I'm a mom. I have 2 young kids. I have a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old. So
fun ages.
So it's a lot with them. And then just a part of my 9 to 5, I travel a lot. I'm on the road. Sometimes like weekly, and so I think what I've been trying to do is like try to essentially like take the things that I'm passionate about, which PAIR is something I'm extremely passionate about, is just kind of bringing people, like I said, together through food. Like I think you were at our grand opening, you kind of seen like just a variety of different like faces like in the room, and like so that's what we just really want to create, is just a place where people can come together, different backgrounds, like different, like life experiences, different stages of life, and like everybody can learn from each other and share and like just converse and learn over good food.
For sure.
We also have been hosting, in PAIR, like our coffee chat series. So we introduced like our monthly coffee chat series where we bring a professional in from the Pittsburgh region or industry. And I can't even say it's going to be Pittsburgh. Maybe, maybe I might have to. I've been talking to a few of my friends and people in my network who are not in Pittsburgh who are interested in coming in.
Yeah.
And just kind of giving their perspective as well. But so that is something I'm passionate about, and so it's really important for me to like weave in the things that I'm passionate about into like my regular life, and so so there's not like I don't want to be so like isolated to like just being just working at Moody's or just owning a business or just being a mom or just doing real estate. So I kind of really wanted to like just kind of figure out a way to like kind of bring all those elements together. And so as a part of my personal objectives, like is to acquire more real estate. And one of the ways I know that I can do that is through my business, right? And so, just kind of trying to build out a strategy in which I can like accomplish, the things that I'm, wanting to do financially, or build, but do it smarter, right?
For sure.
And so I think, just in my experience, kind of working in financial services, a lot of that time I spent in investment management and private investment, the private investment industry. And so, I looked at like a lot of the structures for how the wealthy people are like building their structures and building their businesses and like organizing their lives. And I think like when you start to like take a step back and say like, okay, like how am I actually going to create vehicles and investment vehicles and leverage like kind of my resources where I can accomplish like these multiple things at one time. And so I think that's what I'm trying to do for myself. Hopefully you've seen it through the pitch through PAIR for additional funding, because at the end of the day, like, we want to just build and grow and not necessarily just kind of stay like in one, kind of like plane, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And honestly, I love that you said that, because that was sort of my mindset while being in banking, was to learn from, all the relationships I had with people who have 6-figure incomes or millionaires. Those people, I really paid attention to the level of conversations I was having, because now I'm able to learn, oh, this is a vehicle to be able to invest, or this is a vehicle that I can use to have a passive income. And those are the things that I think people don't take away from their 9 to 5, those experiences that could help you make moves outside of that. So that way you can really hit some of those financial goals that, you set, but like you need to be able to have tangible vehicles to be able to acquire them. So
and then I want to be an entrepreneur, but then I'm also like kind of just super passionate about what I do in my 9 to 5 as well. So
for sure, which we got to get into.
So I work in risk and compliance, and a large part of that is like looking at like how organizations are essentially committing like financial crimes, and like how those impact not only financial institutions, which are like primarily who I work with, but also how they impact like the average everyday person, and like some of the things that we should be aware of just as general consumers. So a part of me wants to like kind of just focus full-time on entrepreneurship, and then part of me really wants to kind of still continue to work in my field. So I'm just trying to figure it out, really honestly, how to work everything together.
Absolutely. And that was a perfect segue. So for those who don't know, and again, I'll try to give it in the perspective of what I do know. By no means do I have all the facts, or I know all, still do your research about this topic and subject. But TD Bank was recently hit with, I think it was the largest.
The largest.
The largest, I want to say, fine or penalty for any financial institution. I don't want to throw the number out because I can't remember.
It's like what? Like,
you know better than me.
So what is it like? I think like 367.
So I know. Hold on, I'm about to get it real quick.
I don't know. I should know this, but $36 million, or no? I think that was their previous fine. $3 billion. Sorry.
It was definitely billion.
$3 billion. Yeah.
3 with a Billy with a B. So they were hit with one of the biggest. I think before was who was it? Was it?
More than likely, probably HSBC. I'm not.
I gotta look that up, but. They were hit with, because they had they didn't have a lot of security in place as far as holding their consumers accountable as far as wire transfers, fraud. There was a lot of fraud going on with them. So essentially you had did a social media post, which I loved, just giving your thoughts about what went down and I would love for you just to, if you're not following her on TikTok, please do so.
Okay.
But just for you to articulate what down and then just your initial thoughts.
So TD Bank, one of the 10th largest bank in the U.S., they are worth $367 billion. They were fined $3 billion, which is the largest penalty, but not by any means significant compared to the size of TD Bank.
Correct. They
were hit with essentially conspiracy to commit money laundering. I think on my TikTok I talked about like one scheme, which was like Chinese money laundering organizations and how they were using TD Bank, but that was by far not the only scheme that they were it was kind of running through TD Bank. There was money.
So I'm not going to hold you. So it was 1.3 billion settlement, the largest penalty against a depository institution in U.S. Treasury.
So they paid 1.3 billion was paid to Treasury, but there were other
penalties
that were sent to other organizations like the OCC. But all the penalties together totaled around like $3 billion.
Got it. Yep.
There were like fraud schemes. I think money being sent to like Colombia. And other schemes that were rolling through. But really, what was interesting about the TD Bank case, is one of the things that me and my husband were talking about. I think we all saw Lil Durk's that situation, but it's just interesting, like the ability for law enforcement to really follow the money, and that's what it's about as it relates to what I do, which is anti-money laundering and fraud and compliance is just follow the money. So you had law enforcement that were like just watching this one individual walk into multiple TD Bank branches with huge lump sums of money, and they were able to like just follow this individual and see like that he was laundering money. I think over like a 12-year period, like $650 million he was able to just kind of send through the bank, and it wasn't really triggering any of the controls that it should have triggered. So their AML program wasn't necessarily being notified of the suspicious activity. This individual was literally walking into branches with millions of dollars and walking back out and wire and transferring that money to other bank accounts, and then taking cashier checks and things like that were used. And they had employees on the inside helping them, where they were bribing these employees for like gift cards. Right? Like, I mean, that's it. Like
meanwhile,
so they're laundering like $650 million. Through this bank. I think they end up spending around like $57,000 in gift card bribes, right? So you have multiple TD Bank employees right now who are, kind of have been charged with money laundering as well. The organization itself has, pled guilty to conspiracy to commit money laundering. But as you mentioned, like this is not necessarily the only program failure we've seen, from banks as it relates to AML, and so you did a podcast, I remember on Corporate Transparency Act.
Check it out.
Yeah, and so
I'm gonna do another one too coming up.
So, I did also. If you look at my social media, my TikTok, I think I did one as well on Corporate Transparency Act, and so really the whys behind why the United States government needs to enact such a rule.
For sure.
Right, and so I think you talk a little bit about how this impacts everyday people, which is if you're an entrepreneur, you have to register your business with FinCEN starting January 1st, 2025. But why is that, right? 2 million corporations are formed in the United States every year.
Right.
The United States government has very little visibility into who the individuals and or entities behind these entities, who own these organizations. And so when they do commit like money laundering or terrorist financing or human trafficking, they don't know who it is. Right? And so now essentially with corporate transparency,
people are hiding behind their businesses.
So Corporate Transparency Act, it's to create transparency essentially into the U.S. financial system. So
for sure. And honestly, I love how you put that, because for me, this platform is about translating what we know to our communities, so that way they have a better understanding. Because I'm pretty sure many people are looking at this like, they ain't worried about what TD Bank's doing, or they're happy to hear that that's how they got caught up and things of that nature. But we don't look at it at a micro level like, no, this impacts you in some way, shape, or form, because it structures how they do their policies, how they do business moving forward. So if you're not educated about how the banking system works, you literally can be setting yourself up for failure. So I tried to create this platform so that way we can give you the minutia and give you the micro of why this does impact you. Granted, it doesn't impact you directly right now, but you never know what your future may hold, where you're trying to do something with your business and you don't understand the procedures and things that they have in place, or the disclosures and what have you. And, you know, why not be educated, because it could impact you in the future, if not immediately.
For sure. And I think too, like, it's important, you know, so for twofold, right? Even if, you know, just thinking about, like, if, you know, like why the U.S. federal government needs to, like, enact such a rule, right? I mean, some of the impacts essentially are like housing, like, you know, so even if you're not self-employed, like, you know, criminal organizations are laundering money through the U.S. financial system, and they're laundering like a lot of this money through like real estate, you know, and so that is impacting like the housing prices and like how much, you know, the average everyday consumer is paying for rent, right? But two, as it relates to Corporate Transparency Act, and if you are a small business owner, understanding like the whys behind, you know, why, you know, FinCEN needs this, because also, like, you know, banks are going to have to leverage this information that you're submitting to FinCEN, right? So you want to make sure that it's accurate, it's correct. So if you go to do business with a financial institution and they pull your information from Treasury to see, you know, in Treasury, FinCEN is just like essentially a branch of the U.S. you know, federal government. Essentially, they regulate AML, KYC rules in the United States. But so you know, you want to make sure that you're submitting accurate information, because that could impact your ability to get a loan or open up an account with the financial institution in the future. For sure,
and part of their job as these organizations are to provide valuable and verifiable information to institutions. So it's really difficult for you to try to, because I always deal with people who, man, I'm trying to avoid taxes, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that, and I'm like, it's better just to be on the up and up, because what we see with, is there a little fly? As we see with what's going on with people getting caught in these criminal organizations. So anything else we want to talk about as it refers to TD?
Sorry.
No, you good. As it refers to TD Bank, because if not, there was another scam going on, or I wouldn't even call it a scam, but people were big on with the Chase glitch. I don't know how much you followed that, but when I do my financial workshops, I'm like, look, it does not make sense for you to take bogus checks and go and try to do something with your own account, because it's really
I would say I mean so it's so interesting, it's so funny because I was just like reading just like a joke. I mean, it's not really that funny, but you know, like it was like a financial crime joke, and it was like, don't be a money mule, like, you know, and that's exactly what, you know, people are like subjecting themselves to, like when you decide, when you open up a bank account and allow someone to move money through your bank account, or with the promise of these, you know, huge returns. So you're essentially a money mule. You're allowing you know, larger organizations to, you know, benefit and capitalize off of your bank account. So when organizations try to, you know, launder money or use money as it relates to fraud, you know, there's a you know, a way that they do it. It's called, it's placement. They place money into the financial
structuring.
Then they layer you know, transactions, and then, you know, what is it? Placement, layering, and structuring. So essentially, you know, that is the way that they're hiding money. Like that's an easy way for them to kind of move money through the financial institution, is to tap a whole bunch of people that are seemingly unrelated, and, you know, and transfer funds into their bank account to obscure like where, you know, some of this money initially came from, right? And so, you know, also thinking about just overall scams, right? Like if you the purpose is essentially to get you to want to invest more. So even if you do, you know, kind of move money, you know, for one of these organizations, and you do maybe get a return the first time, the second time you may not be so lucky. Like, you know, the idea is that they're hooking you in so that they can use you for more. And then too, like, you know, if you know, obviously make let's say you invest $10,000, you make $5,000, you might tell a friend, right? Who might tell a friend, and now they've also gotten interested in potentially being used as mules. They're not going to be so lucky as you were, right? So
absolutely not, because somebody's going to get caught,
right?
And what I love about what we're talking about here, if you're not familiar, it is a specific demographic that is the most acceptable to these criminal attempts. So that is your 18, 19, you're very young individuals who aren't financial literate, and then very older people who are not as tech savvy, or they're not really, you know, hip to what's going on in today's society. those age ranges are typically who they're preying on. Because I can't tell you how many times I've run into older folks getting scammed with a gift card scam, or they're getting text messages from someone pretending to be a financial institution. They done spit all their information to them. Young people, they're the main ones I see. Hey, somebody hit me up on Craigslist, said they gave me a job for me to deposit $5,000 into my account, and they'll give me 10. And it's really, and I'm not even gonna lie to y'all, it's majority Black people that I see that come, and I ran across that, and it broke my heart, because I'm like, why are you so, bet on basically the thought process is, I want to get rich quick. So therefore you're gullible and you're susceptible, because, and that's kind of where it plays into, if you bring it full circle, the generational wealth gap, because now you're trying to get big money quick without putting in any work. And somebody, these scammers, they're very skilled and they know exactly what to say, they know exactly what not to say, they know how to prey on you. So therefore, because they know you want that quick money quick, they're going to make sure that they say and do whatever they need to do to get you to do something that's going to get you compromised, and now you're in trouble. So
you hit on like some great points. I mean, honestly, the first thing you said was they know how to prey on you. So criminal organizations are super sophisticated. We talked to a lot of financial institutions about the fact that a lot of the technology that organizations use is 5 years behind, some of these criminal organizations. They really understand the demographic of people that they want to scam. They know them, and so
they know your salary. They know you. They know a lot of intimate, and social media contributes to that knowledge. I'm sorry,
so interestingly enough, just working here at PAIR, you meet a lot of different people who come in through downtown, but I had a conversation with a gentleman the other day who works for a Pittsburgh-based cyber company, and so he talked a lot about just how he works with organizations that are potentially susceptible to ransomware attacks and some of the cyber attacks you talked about, just training their employees on phishing scams. I think don't click anything if you don't know who the name of the sender is. But all of those things that we talked that even me in my professional career talk to organizations about, and how they can train their employees. Everyday people need to be aware of these things too. If you don't know the person who's sending you the email, don't click on it. If you didn't order something from UPS and they're telling you that your delivery stuck somewhere, don't click on that email. Don't click on that link. But these criminal organizations, one of the things that they're doing is really playing on your emotions. So if you're in a financially desperate situation, you might be more susceptible to, giving somebody your bank account information versus if you're financially solid. I don't know if you ever heard the term pig butchering, which is a crazy, interesting phenomenon now, where these criminal organizations are targeting individuals of Chinese, Asian and Chinese descent, and they're targeting very wealthy individuals. That wasn't, typically fraudsters are playing on people who are in financial stress. Now they're playing on people who are actually wealthy, that might necessarily need or lonely, that they're looking for a relationship. So so they romance scams is a big thing right now.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? So they get to know you. They form a relationship with you on social media. They get you to trust them. They introduce you to this lavish lifestyle that they live in. They get you thinking hey, if you and do what I do, if you invest in whatever I invested in, you can get the same thing. No, they're literally just forming a relationship with you for the sole purpose of taking you for everything that you have.
My Lord. And I got stories for days for stuff like that.
So it's crazy. And so you said, we can see, for me, I can see, okay, on a high level, this is impacting this demographic of people. But I know for the Black community, we've been subject to scams for a long time. And so, no one's that's not a national security issue, whereas pig butchering has become a national security issue. So just interesting. I think just people generally, there's a lot we can teach everybody or our communities about as it relates to protecting yourself financially, and not sharing certain data or information with people that you really don't know or you don't understand, because there are a lot of people out here whose intent is to take from you, what you've built. So
and that's their full-time job.
Right. So yeah, I mean, and so it's, I mean, so at Moody's in my career, like we collect data on organizations that like are taking, like a lot of these organizations is forced labor. So you have like literally camps of individuals sitting in like Cambodia, somewhere in a call center, who they don't necessarily want to be there. Their passport, they don't have access to their passports. They're forced into just all day, like being a part of these scams and scamming people out of their money, and sending, making fake passports and making fake IDs, and opening up bank accounts in people's names. Like they're literally, this is their job. Like they're forced to do this, every day. So just realizing that there are organizations and groups out there that are essentially, that's the sole purpose, is to identify who they can,
absolutely
take from. Right?
And one big, I don't know if you saw this movie, but one movie resource that hits the nail on the head as we go to the future is Beekeeper. I don't know if you saw it with Jason Statham. Oh, you got to see that.
Oh, okay.
Essentially, without spoiling, I'm a yell spoiler. Essentially, there is a corporation, shadow corporation of young playboy philanthropist, like very tech savvy people that are preying on older people with malware or some type of, they get that alert on their computer saying you got a virus. Next thing you know, they're calling IT and they get the IT guy, and he's tapped in their computer and he's ciphering all the bank accounts out. So long story short, Jason Statham, I think his last he's the one who goes, because it resonates with him, with somebody who took care of him and helped him out. So he goes, he's a karate dude. So he goes on a little feud. So check it out. It's a great movie reference to what we're kind of talking about. If you haven't seen it, and normally I don't plug movies or stuff like that, but it resonated with me.
But I mean, I was gonna say, I mean, because like, it's a movie, but like, it's, these things are happening in real life, and it's crazy, like, to see like, so many people being impacted by like these things at one time, and like criminal organizations are just getting more and more sophisticated. They're becoming more and more smart, like about how they approach the general public with scams. Like, absolutely. I mean, today it's clicking something on Instagram, but tomorrow it could be something different, right? Like, I mean, I used to get stuff. I used to just get like stuff in my DMs. Now I'm getting like text messages. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how you're getting access to like my personal data information. That's another thing too. Like,
being on the dark web.
Keep your personal data off of social media. Like, so like a lot of times, like, if I go into somebody's social media profile and I can see like your current employer, your previous employer, where you went to high school, your mother's maiden name, your dog's name, where you last went on vacation. Like,
those are passwords.
Yeah, those are things that people can use to easily guess your passwords, or to guess like your two-factor authentication, questions. Like, right, like, like literally going to your social media and looking at like, am I oversharing? Like, can somebody use the information that I'm posting on my personal profile against me? To get access to some of my accounts. And like, I can tell you, like, for most of the pages that I see on Facebook, I mean, it's like way too much information. So, even just my suggestion, as we're going into like a new year, and you're talking about finances and how you can protect yourself, remove some of that stuff off of, Facebook or social media, because those are all things that can be used to guess like your passwords and to get into your personal accounts and information.
And I would be remiss if I don't tell people to really pay attention to this part, because one of the things we generated the problem and what we know is existing, but now I want to give you some resolution. So if you go work with Community Forge in Wilkinsburg, they have AI training. They have individuals who are educating people on how to use new apps and new companies that are teaching you how to make your passwords more secure. So tap in with Community Forge. From a financial standpoint, there are, I think, Carnegie Mellon and a few other organizations are trying to work with elderly people to teach them a little bit about these scams and things going on. From a financial standpoint, when I do my workshops, I try to make sure to bring up predatory lenders, predatory individuals who are preying on you. And obviously, you can learn from a lot of these. There's resources out here that you can tap into to get better educated, so that way you're not being acceptable and being, taken for granted or being taken just based on a lack of not knowing. But you really have to put the onus on yourself to say, who can I reach out to, or who can I talk to, or can you guide me in the direction of getting better educated, so this does not happen to me. And one of the biggest things I try to teach in my workshops is understanding your credit report.
Right.
Making sure you're checking that thing. Because if somebody gets your information, however they get it, and all they need is your social, so you really have to be your own protection. You can't rely on financial institutions.
Right.
You can't rely on these digital platforms. You really have to check your own. Like, I check my accounts daily, religiously. Right. I check my credit report at least minimum 2-3 times a year, but I'm always paying attention to what's going on with my information. Right. Anytime I get an alert that I'm on the dark web with my email, phone number, I'm always doing my due diligence to make sure I'm changing passwords and trying to be more sophisticated, so that way I'm not acceptable to being scammed. And ask anyone who's gone through it. I'm telling you, it's a devastating process. It's not something quick and easy. Yeah. And you can't sit there and be blaming all these people when really the onus is only impacting you in a negative light.
For sure. So. And yeah, I mean, I would say too, like, anytime you decide to, even, PAIR is a coffee shop, right? And so one of the things that I'm cognizant of is the fact that, people could steal your information through Wi-Fi, right? So, also just keeping in mind, like, when you're out and you're using public Wi-Fi, don't log into your bank accounts. Like, someone could, just really mirror your phone or your email if you're connected to that same Wi-Fi and get access to, like, your personal information. So I think it's just being aware of the fact that there are, individuals out here, organizations out here whose sole purpose is to, get money from other people, right? And so,
it's easier to work.
It is. Like, and like, again, they're super sophisticated. They've been operating like these organizations for some time. And you mentioned AI, right? Like, now with the AI technology, like, they're so far ahead of the banks, right? So you can't rely on your bank to, to protect you in a lot of these situations. It is really like kind of just being aware and like really trying to protect yourself.
Yeah. And I know one thing we did want to tap in is we both have banking or financial institution background, how people can get into this industry, because I'll be honest, shout out to BankWorks, Tanya Bajer, Carmen, Michelle. Those are individuals who I rely on faithfully when I got into early on in the banking industry. The BankWorks program was phenomenal for me, educating me on I don't have to have this top-notch fancy college degree. I can really just be able to get into that program. It's an 8-week program ran by Partner for Works and then the Energy Innovation Center right there in the Hill District, where they help you get into that training program, 8 weeks paid, and then they also do a career fair, job fair, where you get to work with you get to interview with the financial institutions, and they're able to bring you in if they like you and hire you. And it was a game changer for me. So I do always promote that program, but I know other vehicles and avenues to try to entice people to get into that career field, because why not be with, and obviously if you need a new career path, why not get educated with a financial institution, because that teaches you so much about money, teaches you about the government, it teaches you a lot of different things that you can utilize in real world situations.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I worked in financial services for 15 years. My degree out of college was biology, right? Like, I mean, so, I didn't, intend to like be in financial services. Like, that was never the goal. Like, and so somehow
like a lot of people say like you go to college for something. A lot of people in banking don't have like a business degree.
I mean, I don't have a business
or finance degree or anything.
I don't have a business degree. I kind of just worked my way up. I've been all around the financial industry. I mean, I've worked in like customer service. I've done judgmental credit lending. I've done fraud. Like, and now like for the past like 10 years, or I would say like maybe like 7-8 years, I've been working in like risk and compliance. And so like, for me, I talk about this on my TikTok as well, but like, I personally think that like, as it relates to like career pathing, if you have a risk and compliance background, you're always going to be employed. Like,
for sure.
But banks always need someone, as it relates to compliance, and so, I mean, and like PwC actually recently, I was reading an article where they talk about like the cyclical nature of compliance. Like, there's like, we go in the banking industry, you go through these waves like every 10 years where like things happen. And so like right now we're trending. You've seen the TD. We talked a little bit about TD Bank.
Right.
The U.S. regulators are also trying to just create transparency. We talked about Corporate Transparency Act. They're tightening controls on like the private investment industry. So like they're now considering asset managers, financial institutions. So they have to have an AML program. So with that being said, there's a lot that's happening that's going to drive jobs in this field. Yep. And to me, like, if you're already working,
we're talking good money.
Yeah. If you're, I mean, like I said, I was working on a project in Portugal. Like, throughout my career, I've traveled a lot. Like, and so
the wrong side. I was in retail. Oh,
yeah, I mean, so yeah, it's just to me, like the risk and compliance.
Right.
Field is super. It's a great field to get into. I mean, and you can get in as a full-time employee, working for a company, or a consultant, and that's where I kind of really see working in my field, like a lot of the people making like pretty good money consulting, in this field. And so if you're already in banking, that's a plus, right? Like, if you had some sort of financial services experience,
right.
I say like the low hanging fruit is always KYC, right? Like know your customer or customer onboarding.
Yes.
Those jobs are like good, entry level roles to start like getting experience in KYC.
Right. Then get you a mentor, and then that's how you.
Yeah, for sure.
That's how I did it.
Yeah, and then there's training program. So and I actually was the other day because I'm gonna do I'm gonna do a TikTok about it. But looking at entry level jobs in KYC, like what are organizations really looking for? And they're just looking for people who can have good communication skills, right? Like if you easily communicate, you can verbally and written, like, so they want people who can tell a story, right? People who have good analytical skills, and have strong attention to detail,
critical thinking
thinking, like these are just kind of even if you don't have like compliance background, you have those skill sets, right?
For sure.
And so just going into a bank and saying like, hey, like I don't necessarily have this direct compliance experience, but these are like this, this is what I did in my past, right? And this is how it relates to this job, right? So even if you worked in a hotel and you greet a customer and you take their ID, and you verify that the ID is accurate and make sure it matches the name that's on the reservation. That's KYC, right? I mean, that's knowing who you're interacting with.
Because all government entities do that. They have to make sure that they're dealing with
the person. That's all KYC is. That's all compliance is, and that's all banks really want to know. Like, do you have the ability to like read through some documentation or like
attention to detail?
Identify a red flag, ask the right questions if things aren't making sense. So, so really that, kind of if you're looking to get into that role, I would say, in the KYC, I would say if you already have a banking background, that's a plus. If you don't, read up on, what's happening in the world as it relates to compliance and Bank Secrecy Act and Corporate Transparency Act. I think like one of the job descriptions that I saw just said knowledge of the U.S. regulatory environment, right? Like that's just a couple of Google searches, YouTube for real,
Financial literacy.
YouTube. And I mean, I would say just apply, go for an interview because banks are hiring right now in that field, and even in Pittsburgh, you have like BNY Mellon, they're always hiring AML and compliance, and PNC, always has like compliance roles as well. So. I've never worked for either. I did work for BNY at some point, but not in that capacity. But but yeah, I never worked for PNC or or organizations in Pittsburgh. So I've never worked for a bank in Pittsburgh ever.
Oh, okay.
So that's another as well. Yeah. So I work in New York. So even though I live in Pittsburgh, I work in New York. I work remotely.
That's nice.
And so I would say too, like if you're really like looking to like kind of get into like a different career field, just also being open to potentially relocating, so banks are willing to pay, to relocate individuals to get the experience. So even if it's for 6 months to a year, I would say like just to get the experience, be open to moving. I always say that. So that's one of the things I can say throughout my career has helped me to, grow a little bit quicker than others is I lived in Delaware for a period of time. I lived in Boston for some time. I lived in New York. And then I lived in Portugal for some time. So just being like flexible to kind of move around, I think that helps.
So anybody who like to travel,
for sure,
check it out. The banking. You ain't gotta just be a stewardess.
No,
I love that's a great.
No, for sure. But
there's other fields that'll pay you to travel.
For sure. And like I said, consultants. A lot of my colleagues that I was working with, they were like consultants, and that's what they did. Like they just traveled around to different banks, and they helped with compliance. So
for sure.
Yep. And so if you read the TD Bank failure, we'll go back to it again. That was one of the things that they did a lot of, like just hiring consultants and like trying to help them with their AML program. So it's a lucrative, to me, it's a lucrative career path thing for people to consider.
Absolutely. So I think we did a phenomenal job just educating people on some of the things that we know, sharing some of our experiences. Before we get up out of here, I definitely want to make sure you share any and all information from a social media standpoint. Obviously, as a reminder, I didn't want to, this would have been gone, but I wanted to pace myself. So make sure you come check out PAIR Charcuterie down here, downtown Pittsburgh. Make sure you give them the address.
Okay.
Or any ways you want people to contact you. And, I definitely want us to, we'll give our closing words and then we'll close this thing out.
All right. Yeah. So PAIR Charcuterie, we're located at 201 Smithfield Street on the corner of Smithfield and Boulevard to Allies. If you want to get in touch with us, so we're always looking for small businesses and other businesses to collaborate with.
Or corporate catering.
So you can hit us up at info@pairpgh.com. Through our email, you can follow us on social media at pairpgh.com. If you're looking for like any advice on like careers and risk and compliance or AML, you can follow me on TikTok or on Instagram as well. My handle is at Miss Quayla, MSQUALA. Love to connect with other businesses or just small business owners in Pittsburgh. So please feel free to connect.
Yeah, and like always, I'll have her information in the description at the bottom of the video. And I'm just so grateful for you because
thank you so much for having me on.
We did a phenomenal job. This is one of my, I'll say top 5, because I think the information we shared is very impactful. And also, we were able to really create, I think, a sense of urgency and try to just bring value to what we're talking about, because I don't think it's talked about enough, if at all, in our communities.
I would agree.
Yeah. So.
I mean, I think I'm happy to talk about this subject because it's not talked about at all. Like I think just working in my industry, like especially like there's not a super ton of I guess it depends. I don't want to necessarily say pigeonhole and say there's not a ton of diversity, but at times it can feel like there's not a lot of diversity, or there's not necessarily a lot of people who are really invested in like how some of these things are impacting the Black community. So I'm always happy to talk about some of these subjects because we definitely can get a lot more educated around like.
And let's just keep it a buck. The banking industry and the financial industry, there isn't a ton of people who look like us in that. So I'm a firm believer that we need to have that representation in all tiers and levels of the financial industry. So that way, one, we're in those rooms, so we're learning and we can bring it back to our communities. Because I'll keep it a buck. We have a generational wealth gap. That number is not improving as quickly as I would like. And I want to make sure that there's tangible things that can be taught and programming that can be developed in our communities, so that way we're actually making a gap. Like we know the holiday season's approaching quickly. They say we spend trillions of dollars as a community, but I'm like, well, that's great and all, but where's those numbers for how many of us in our communities are investing? Or how many of us are, making 6-figure incomes, and those are the numbers that I think we need to be more intentional about impacting home ownership, all that stuff. So, with all that being said, it's really imperative that we continue to have these conversations, and that's really what all this platform is about, is having these conversations centered around finances, and we're factoring in that, we need to have people in those rooms, in those boardrooms, gaining knowledge and experience, because we know that information is not trickling back into our community.
No, for sure. And I think you're doing such a great job. Seriously, this is really needed. Just the fact that you are so diverse as it relates to the topics that you're presenting as well. So great job. Just keep going, because
I appreciate it.
this is needed, like you said, and I think just as many as people as you can bring on to kind of talk about their experiences. Some will resonate with some people, some may not resonate with others, but I think you're doing such a great job again. So it's good to see and good to even be a part of of your platform. So
absolutely. All right, y'all. So this is another episode of Financial Literacy with TC. Again, this is Shaquala Swinton.
Swinton.
Oh, I'm gonna get it, y'all. Swinton. And I'm TC. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode, and we look forward to seeing you next time. I appreciate it.
I'm getting money, you see me. Stack it up to the ceiling. If you're looking for me, you know just where to find me. I'm on a pod with TC, with TC. Oh, I'm on a pod with TC, with TC.